we are going to be writing and solving proportions. In order to write a proportion, the first thing you want to look at is the question. The question here is, how far can I drive in 1 hour? That will tell you what your first ratio should be. Since we don't know how far, we're trying to say how many miles. I know it's miles because I can see that that's what's being measured in over here. How many miles in 1 hour? So here's my first ratio. Remember that a proportion is a ratio set equal to another ratio. After we write our first ratio using our question, then we use the same titles or labels that we've used on that for our titles for our other ratios. Since this is miles to hours, then this ratio is also going to be miles to hours. At this point, I want to look back in the problem and see if I have any information about miles to hours that I'm given. I can see that in the problem it tells me if I drove 140 miles, that it would take me 2 hours. So what that means, if I was driving for 2 hours, I could drive 140 miles. Since we're trying to figure out how far I could go in 1 hour, I know that that's half the amount of time. And if I'm only going half the amount of time, then I can only go half the distance. So I had to take the 140 miles and split it in two to see that half the distance was 70 miles. If I wanted to do this without a picture, then what I could see is that the scale to get from 1 to 2 is that I was driving for twice as long. To get from 140 miles back to the number of miles we don't know, we can see that if this way is twice as long, it's half as long this way, so I can divide it by 2 to find half, or I can multiply by 1/2. And 140 divided by 2 would give me 70. If we look at another example, again we look at the question. The question is, I'm looking for the word how or what, is how much water will I need to make 12 cups of juice? That helps me set up my first ratio. Since I don't know how much water, I'm going to use a variable. It does not need to be x, it can be any variable you want. It's just showing that we don't yet have a number value. So how much water for 12 cups of juice? Now that we have our first ratio set up, we're going to set up our next equivalent ratio. Remember, they're equivalent because it's happening at a constant rate. And then we look at our labels. Since this is water to cups of juice, then this ratio is going to be water to cups of juice. At this point, we'll look back at the problem and see if we can figure out what we should write for water in cups of juice for the information given. It says the ratio of concentrate to water in one batch is 1 to 3. Now remember that the order of the words is the same as the order of the numbers, so that means that the 1 goes with the concentrate and the water goes with the 3. So when we're looking at a ratio of what to write, we need to say that there are 3 cups of water. And we have to figure out how many cups of juice. So if 1 is the amount of concentrate and 3 is the amount of water, then to get the total cups of juice, we have to add them together to see that it makes 4 cups of juice, and that helps us fill out the rest of this ratio. That means that for every 4 cups of juice, we use 3 cups of water. So here we have 4 cups of juice. I have to figure out how many times, or how many groups of 4 cups of juice are in 12. So I can say, okay, I have another 4 cups of juice. And now I'm at 8, I'm still not at 12. I have another 4 cups of juice. And now I have 4, 8, and 12. Now remember that for every 4 cups of juice, there was 3 cups of water. So I have 3 cups of water with that 4 cups, 3 cups with this amount of 4 cups, and 3 with that group of 4 cups. The other way to do this is to find the scale from 4 to 12. I can do that by taking 12 divided by 4, and that will tell me that there are 3 groups of 4 cups of juice. So therefore, I'm making 3 times as much juice, which means I need 3 times as much water, which is 9 cups of water.